which is out on the golf course. Unfortunately, I have to bring everybody up to speed as to what's happened this winter. I've worked on golf courses since I was 17 years old, rigging bunkers. Yes, I did rig bunkers at one point. This winter is like nothing I've ever seen before in my life. And I think you'll find that from a lot of the other superintendents about the province. This was unprecedented. As Sheldon said, they're rating this back to something that happened back in 73, 74. The presentation I'm going to give you is basically a recap of what we experienced this winter. If you were fortunate enough to be down in Florida, you will miss some of this, which is okay. The second part will be basically our options for recovering the turf. And the third part will just be some slides as to what we're experiencing out on the golf course if you haven't had a chance to take a look around. Just bear with me with my presentation. We're finding the board, so we won't get into as well here. Again, I'll just speak over the slides as we get up to speed. Okay, introductory slide. This first slide is the snow fence at the front entrance. As you can see, the snow fence is almost completely buried by snow. Again, this is what they're calling the worst winter. Frost of 4 to 6 feet deep. We did have 8 greens covered, 3 with solid tarps, 5 with perforated tarps. All of our dormant chemical and fertilizer applications did go down effectively in late November. Again, that was not an issue. So we start off the winter of 2014, December 22nd. This was the giant ice storm that was cutting power in parts of Ontario. It did cause quite significant damage to some of our trees. We didn't lose any direct specimens, but there were a lot of limbs out there. The grounds crew has done an absolutely fantastic job of getting those cleaned up. If you live near the golf course, you probably heard the chipper running for about 3 or 4 weeks straight as we got rid of most of this material. So after that, we then had snowstorm after snowstorm after snowstorm. In general, we had between 2 and 2.5 feet of snow over the entire golf course for the entire winter. On January 8th, the forecast was for the traditional January thaw. We took advantage of that to begin snow blowing a few of our greens, hoping that when the thaw did come, we would be able to reset some of that ice clock, get some of those turf areas exposed. At which point, we then had, the forecast came, we had 1.5 inches of rain. The rain was not followed by the thaw, instead it was followed by a flash freeze. The entire golf course was covered with about 2.5 inches of ice. You can see the second fairway on the left. You could have done about 8 sheets of curling on that. It was that smooth. It was about 1.5 feet, 2 feet thick. Top right corner, you can see our assistant Brian standing on the 16th green. Again, you could have played hockey on that. And the bottom right is 16 fairway. That's basically a river of ice down the entire thing. And it kept snowing. We waited for a few more weeks. Again, we had the forecast in March was for some improving temperatures. We went out with a material of black sand. It's basically a top dressing sand, which we spread on a few selected greens to see how it would work. You can kind of see the contrast there with the snowbank in behind. So again, we were anticipating a nice traditional March to arrive. Absolutely did not. March was snowy and bitterly cold. It was worse than January, we thought. And again, this is when we figured most of the damage actually happened on the golf course. There was no pattern as to what was hit, what was not hit, what survived. There's another slide coming up that will demonstrate that. And again, turf that initially looked promising quickly declined, which is totally opposite of what we're used to. This is the 4th green. Left hand is when the green was initially exposed. Again, you can see the depth of the snowbank. Top right was about 4 days later. bottom right was about a week later, so it basically died on us as we exposed it. Okay, causes of winter injury. I'll try and keep this as quick and as fast as possible. Turf can die from suffocation. That's if it's covered for too long by ice and or snow. Extreme low temperature, you can basically freeze your turf. Freeze-thaw cycles. This is ice formation inside of the plant tissue, which shatters it. It's basically like an egg. You step on an egg and it shatters and bleeds to death. Desiccation, which is basically windburn, the freeze-thawing. Or our good friend snow mold. To demonstrate how effective our applications of snow mold protection were in the winter, we have no snow mold disease on the golf course. That's a positive. Opening day. We are targeting next Thursday as opening day. What to expect? Again, we understand that everybody's anxious to get this winter behind us in the history books. We know there's a lot of pressure, probably unlike any other year. There will be temporary greens out there. Some holes will be closed for play entirely. There will be restricted teeing areas. Some tee decks are completely dead. Some tee decks have wear areas on part of them. We're guessing we have about 30% death on our tee decks at this time. Storm cleanup, I think we can probably cross that one off the list. Again, the guys have done a great job, so that one's probably going to be off the list. And you will see the grounds crew out there overseeing verticutting, doing all those sort of operations. Recovery period, there will be temporary greens while we try and get some new turf established on those dead areas. Greens will be slower. You will not be seeing fast greens as we try and get the mowing heights up to encourage some carbohydrate development. Try and get that plant stronger, get some energy reserve built up in it. There will be restricted teeing areas. Again, you'll see in the next group of photos that you'll see exactly why. Restricted carts right now, we're manufacturing about another 250 rope stakes out there, so there will be lots of rope and lots of stakes to try and guide you around those sore areas. And again, you may see the ground staff out there at times you traditionally did not see them, afternoons, evenings, weekends. Again, we're desperate to try and get the turf established here. Other golf courses, everybody likes to compare yourself good times and bad down the road. Golf courses that were hit hardest this year are predominantly the older vintage golf courses, which is because we have Poa annua on our greens, which is the natural turf of Ontario. It's very invasive, it's very aggressive, but it does not like cold, it does not like heat. Bent grass is traditionally what they use on newer golf courses, which is why you'll see new golf courses that survive very well. Their bent grass is able to take that cold, that ice encasement much better than ours are. Again, microclimates will have a big impact. London's a little different than we are. We're a little different than Niagara, so again, depending on where you are in the province, your damage could be worse or better. Better being a weird term. Just as well, the ground staff will be involved with our new addition, so that will also require some resources to try and button that up, try and get some of these areas back in looking good, so that once the project is complete, we can call that one finished. Recovery strategies. Again, I've been in deep discussion with the USGA, has had a couple of good seminars, webinars. I've also been in touch with my colleagues in Quebec. I figured if anybody knows how to get through this, it's these guys, not the Ontario guys. So they've been extremely helpful in helping us develop a program. Probably the number one slide that I'm going to show you tonight. Okay, option one to get some grass back on our greens, rebuild, roll them up, get the bulldozers in and the high hose and whatnot. Basically, convert everything to a brand new USGA sand-based green with drainage and perched water table and all those good fancy things that superintendents like to go on about. The site would probably be closed for at least a year. That's each green site under construction, and knowing that the contractor will probably only be able to do 7 or 8 greens at a time in a year, you're probably looking at a couple-year operation here. Again, the cost is $150,000 to $200,000 per green site. That's not for the entire 18, that's per green. Again, once they do that, you would lose your Thompson contours unless you spend an exorbitant amount of money and have those GPS integrated. But the positive is, the long-term result is you would have the best playing surface that's currently available to the golf course industry. But again, it comes at a pretty steep price. Option number 2 is a resod. I'm sure people have heard that Burlington Golf Club is currently underway with a resod program. Again, you're looking $5,000 plus per green. Again, that's not for all of them, that's just per green. Problem is that your soil below remains poor. I know everybody hates me at the end of May when I pull the aerators out, but that's to try and amend our very poor soil. Again, if you do not amend that soil, your chance of recovery is going to be lower, even though you're looking at bent grass sod. There's no guarantee that that's going to grab at 100%. Again, you will have some POA invasion over time. Eventually, brand new greens do convert to POA bent mix. Eventually, they rarely stay at 100% bent grass for their entire lifetime. This would be a resod operation. You can see they go in, they strip everything off at the top. Then it's fairly labor intensive to get that new sod laid down. On the bottom right picture, you can see he's having mixed results with that, even though he's got a sprinkler system going. It would be high labor as well. You need basically one person to babysit each green site for the entire growing period. Here's our friends over at Burlington Golf Club. This was tweeted a couple of days ago, I believe last week. You can see he's out with the sod cutter, removing that dead material. We'll get rid of that and go in with some brand new sod. Just one caveat to that, apparently there is no bent grass sod left in Ontario. Because it's all been snatched up ages ago or called for. The other thing that you need to remember when we're looking at a resod operation is the growing environment needs to be modified. I talked about the soil. You would need to go in and do 2 to 3 very aggressive aerifications every year. If you think one is bad, wait till I try and get you into a third one. As well, you're looking at a drill and fill operation, which is basically injecting sand into the profile as well. And you need to adjust your growing environment. This is number 12 green, looking back down the fairway. So the contrast is a little difficult, but you can see there's ice damage right through the middle of that green, and it coincides exactly with the shadow of that poplar is right behind the green. Sorry, Shane, it's got here. Option 3 is overseeding. Again, it's the least expensive, it's the least labor intensive. They are playable. The gentleman in Quebec guarantee me that they are playable during the season, but again, patience is a must. You have to give the grass plant a chance to establish. You do retain the original contours of the course, so there's no change there. Again, creeping bent grass is introduced into the canopy. It's not 100% catch. Again, POA annua is your most aggressive grass, but any chance to increase your creeping bent populations is a bonus for the golf course. I think we saw that one before. Okay, here are some photos that we took early last week. Good news is there is some improvement out there. The improvement is daily, it is improving, but the temperatures are just not there. This is our putting green. We did actually mow it for the first time last week. Any of those white areas are dead. That is never going to come back no matter how warm it gets, how much fertilizer we put on it, how much water. The bright white is gone. The darker, sort of the brown areas will possibly recover given a chance. The green areas look very green. Again, when we opened this up at the very start of the year, we considered this to be our absolute worst green. We figured this one was 100% dead. Instead, we feel that it was probably 50% extreme dormant. So again, there is some life there. It is looking better, but there are some bad spots. There's your first tee, standing on the blue blocks, looking down. The front of the tee, where the red blocks are, is in excellent shape. The blue tees are completely gone. You can see a little bit of the bent grass has survived in there, but the POA is dead. The reason that we feel that that's dead is that the shade trees to the right-hand side of that tee continue with the ice encasement, lower temperatures. That's exactly why that area is dead, whereas the front, which had more direct sunlight, survived. This is number 1 fairway. Again, it looks better today than it did a week ago, but you can see that it's got some issues. To approach the green, I think as Sheldon mentioned, the green doesn't look too bad. You look at it and think, well, there's some good green on that. It would be all right to play on. When you stand over it, it's got some dead spots in it as well. Once you get up on top of that green and look right at it, it's pretty sore. Again, it's one of those illusions. You look at it from a distance, think it's fine, but when you get right on top of it, it's gone. The glimmer of hope that we had is our new tees that we built late last year. I've been experimenting with a new dwarf-type bluegrass. It's not a POA. This is the best turf on the golf course with our brand new tees. And with great results. Back to number 9 green. Again, that's pretty well gone. You can see the shade issues back there as well. We found that most of our collars were hammered really hard, as well as the approaches. There's a really interesting slide coming up. Again, that's because when we did the burnout back in 2001, when we regrassed the fairways, we basically eliminated all the undesirable grasses except for the collars and the very front approaches, which is ryegrass. Ryegrass is extremely intolerant of cold weather. It checks out at about -10. So it really got hit this year. This is number 7 green. This is what we would classify as the worst green again. This picture, it looks better today than that picture, but we thought that was pretty close to 95% dead again. Some of the extreme dormant areas are coming back, but again, there is a lot of dead grass on that green. Number 10 is probably one of our best greens. Again, there's no real rhyme or reason as to why some of these areas died. We had anticipated that 10 would probably get hit harder than any other because it's up high. It's exposed to a lot of wind, but again, it came out with flying colors. You can see a lot of the traffic areas are the areas that are the worst hit. Again, that collar on the left side, there's weaker grasses in that which have checked out. Number 11, white tee is about 80% dead. You go 10 yards in front to the red tee and it's almost perfect. So again, there's no real rhyme or reason as to why some of these areas are gone. Again, it was just hit and miss. We put together a spreadsheet. We could find no correlations to what we did, didn't do, what was tarped, what was untarped, what we didn't. Just again, very random. Some of the fairways were hit. We're glad to say that our fairways are probably some of the best in the province. But again, this is the right side of 18, just as you cross the road. This was under ice for pretty well the entire winter. So again, even bed grass can go backwards if it's exposed enough to the cold and the ice in the winter. So bent grass gives you a better chance than any other grass, but it can also suffer. Number 5 tee, this is fairly indicative of most of our white tees. You can see the damage is right beside the cart path, which is where the heaviest traffic use is. This is the turf that's suffered the most wear going into the winter, as well as most of the compaction on the tee. So it's pretty easy to see where that happens again. That's pretty well indicative of most of our white tees. Rough was hit very hard as well. Rough does come back, and we have got some seed on order or in stock to regrass our rough. Again, it needs some time, some heat, some light. This is the 18th green. If you look to the right, you can see almost an exact straight line of dead grass and then some excellent turf grass for the fairway. This coincides to the burn line that we did back in 2001. Everything to the right is bent grass, POA mix. Everything to the left towards the approach was that ryegrass which checked out. And you can see to the right as well a lot of traffic areas up there. Again, those are the ones that were hit the hardest. That's about 1 ton of grass seed. We've got about 1/3 of that down already. We have done quite a bit of work on our turf areas to try and get the seed in there. The seed is there. It's now waiting for some warmth to get it moving. Just a couple of slides for seedbed preparation. This is an operation which basically removes some of the dead material that's on the surface. It gets the seedbed ready for a little seed to go in and get contact with the soil in order to germinate. You can see the amount of material that our operator is taking off just between his legs. It's just literally hay coming out of that. And again, you get a diamond pattern. The scale's a little tough to envision here, but those are basically about 1/4 inch apart. So there's an excellent seed bed there, diamond pattern. So once that seed does begin to germinate, it should form a nice tight stand. It won't be sort of highway runway strips. Again, very nice and tight. And that's how we felt all winter.